The real truth is that as long as our nation remains overly reliant on oil and fossil fuels, we'll feel these price shocks the next time there's a war, the next time there's a pandemic or another hurricane. These extreme weather events we are experiencing, they will impact the access that we have to fossil fuels. The only way out of these boom and bust cycles is to break that sole reliance, and that means diversifying our fuel sources by deploying clean energy.
That was Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm once again pushing her green climate agenda as Americans feel the gut punch of high gasoline prices as a result. Granholm will be sitting down with oil executives today at the White House, a meeting that President Biden has decided to skip. Joining me right now is Pennsylvania Congressman Guy Reschenthaler. He's a member of the Judiciary, Foreign Affairs, and Armed Services Committee in the House of Representatives. Congressman, it's always a pleasure. Thanks very much for being here this morning. Interesting to see that Jennifer Granholm will be meeting with the oil executives. It's been President Biden that's been attacking the industry about their profits and certainly trying to get them to produce more, even with all of his executive orders. Why isn't he meeting with the oil CEOs today?
Well, it's because Joe Biden knows that he is beholden to his far left radical base. So he has to distance from the same oil executives that his administration is now going to, begging to increase production. But Maria, let's be clear about something. Joe Biden, Secretary Granholm, the entire Democratic Party, this was by design that these gas prices increase, because for years we've been told that if only gas were $4 or $5 or $6 a gallon, it would speed the transition from hydrocarbons to so-called clean energy. This was what they wanted to do. And if you remember, about a year and a half ago, any time an oil executive came before a committee, the Democrats were asking, how are you going to ramp down production? How are you going to get us off fossil fuels? So they have created this mess. It's unfortunate now that the American people are literally now paying the price for it at the pump.
Yeah, what is she talking about there in that soundbite we played in terms of the reliance on fossil fuels? The next pandemic is going to make us not have access to fossil fuels. I don't understand what she's saying there, but at the same time, yes, we see that it could be intentional because they see this as a transition period, Congressman. And in the meantime, it's costing everybody all of this money for gasoline and inflation. Do you expect this to reverse course anytime soon? For the president to say, look, we can actually encourage the sector to have more leases and more permitting if he were to, take back some of those executive orders that he put in place on day one in office?
Well, this isn't going to change anytime soon because you just can't change the industry on a dime. For example, let's just say OPEC and Saudi Arabia, which are at near 100% capacity, but let's just say they increase capacity hypothetically. You still need to refine the crude oil that's coming from Saudi Arabia and other places overseas. We don't have the refinery capabilities to do that, largely because bureaucracy, regulation, red tape has prevented us from even bringing in a new refinery in the United States for decades. Yeah. Further, you just can't magically go and drill, for example, for natural gas and have the production start immediately. It takes months and months to make sure that you have the drill site prepared, et cetera. So what we should be doing is we should be reversing the regulation that Joe Biden put on the first place. The ban, for example, on drilling on federal lands should ease permitting, for example, and then reverse the decision on the Keystone XL pipeline so we can actually move product. That would take off some of the pressure, but we can't be delusional. The Democrats have created this over a period of months and frankly years by driving down capital investment in the hydrocarbon energy. It's going to take a while to get out of this.
Yeah, and there's also a real push throughout a whole of government. You've got the Securities and Exchange Commission and its new rules about climate and, investigating, how much of one's portfolio is ESG and what isn't. Congressman, I'm with your former colleague this morning, Doug Collins, former congressman from Georgia. Jump in here, Doug.
Hey, good morning, Congressman. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Doug.
Real
good
quickly,
to see you too.
Good to see you. This not just the policies here that, you talk with them in Rules Committee approach when you're around. What are Democrats looking at right now? Because the political aspect of this is, there's always been this never let a crisis go to waste, and we're seeing it right now with the Democrats. But behind the scenes, is there a lot of concern about what seems to be a disconnect from the Biden administration, especially going into these congressional elections, concerning people's pocketbook issues, the gas prices, the inflation? What's sort of the behind the scenes that you're getting from the Democrats, even though they're trying to take advantage of the crisis? What are they seeing?
Well, Doug, it's a double-edged sword, because behind the scenes, the Democrats know they're going to go into the minority with this election. They know that they're going to get absolutely crushed in these midterm elections. At the same time, though, they're so beholden to that far-left radical base that has declared war on oil and gas and all the hydrocarbons, et cetera. So there's a disconnect there. Additionally, their answer to the problem, and you heard Secretary Granholm say this, is, well, everybody should be driving an electric vehicle. And I say this is the let them eat Prius Democratic Party, because they're so absolutely out of touch with reality. They have no idea. The average person that can afford an electric vehicle is making well over 100 figures a year. It's just not practical right now. So there's this disconnect from reality. There's a disconnect from average American families. But what they do realize is that they're going to have a lot of electoral defeats in just a few months.
So this morning, you've got Jay Powell on the Hill once again. Yesterday, the chairman of the Federal Reserve said, no, it wasn't Russia as the primary force driving up gasoline prices. And then you've got a tweet from President Biden saying, I'm doing everything I can to blunt the Putin price hike and bring down the cost of gas and food. He goes through a whole list of things that he did, leading the world to coordinate the largest release from the global oil reserves in history. As if that did anything, I'm working to get 20 million tons of grain out of Ukraine to help bring prices down, he said, Congressman. Is what the president doing having an impact?
No, it's not having an impact at all, and it's convenient for the Democrats and Joe Biden that Putin invaded Ukraine, because now they have a scapegoat. The problem they're going to have is the American people are way too smart for this, because remember, gas prices had already risen about $1.20 from the time Biden took office to the time Putin invaded in Ukraine. So the American people know that it was the rhetoric that Biden had on the campaign trail. For example, he said that he wanted to phase out fossil fuels. He said he wanted to transition 100% to so-called clean energy. That rhetoric drove down investment, and now he's paying the cost of not only the rhetoric, but also the executive actions he took to restrict supply of petroleum and other hydrocarbons.
All right, we will leave it there. Congressman, we will catch up soon. We appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you so much. Guy Reschenthaler joining us this morning.